Hello everyone, my name is Owen, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode of How to Beat, we will look at the mistakes made by Rachel, and come up with different ways you could have beaten the Westside Ripper from the Night Ripper. Very quickly, before the video starts, I'd just like to say that we are on the road to 1,000 subs, and only 15% of you guys are actually subscribed. It'd truly mean the world to me if you subscribe today. You can always feel free to unsub later if you want. Anyways, I'll quickly summarize the plot of the game and go over the rules and conditions of the scenario, so that we can have a better understanding of what we are up against today. Be warned, this video contains spoilers for the Night Ripper. Anyways, sit back, relax, have some chicken nuggets, a Tropicana, and enjoy. Plot summary. The Night Ripper takes place on August 5th, 1981 in Greene County, New York. You play as a waitress, Rachel, who just got off work from a diner and is now headed home. But, like the foolish horror protagonist she is, Rachel decides to walk home, whilst fully knowing that there is a serial killer on the loose, whilst also refusing a lift home from her co-worker Booch. Before she makes her way home, she hears on the radio that the killer is driving around in a black sedan, and is especially interested in killing prostitutes. And because of the recent killings at the hands of the Westside Ripper, Rachel's main route home has been cordoned off by the police for forensics. This makes her take another route home, a more dangerous one, and because our killer is an unreasonable, misogynistic, idiot wannabe vigilante, he mistakes Rachel for a prostitute, causing him to stalk and eventually try to kill Rachel in a life or death game of cat and mouse. At first, the Ripper just follows Rachel around in the streets in his sedan, but later on in the night he ditches his car when Rachel reaches areas he wouldn't be able to get to in his car, such as the crack den or the slums, so depending on where you are, the Ripper will either be in his car or on foot. Eventually Rachel makes it to the rooftops like the Ninja Turtle she is, finessing her way through the crack den, yet her clumsy ass drops her purse containing her wallet and keys. Eventually, when she makes it outside her apartment, she's left with no choice but to scrounge up 10 cents, so she can use a nearby payphone to call her roommate Rhonda to let her in, since she doesn't have her keys anymore, whilst also still narrowly avoiding the Westside Ripper. Eventually she gets into her apartment, sitting down to watch a movie, but right when we think she's made it, she hears a window break and a quacking sound coming from behind her, as the screen cuts to black, pretty much implying that the Ripper broke in to finish the job. But now that the plot summary is out of the way, let's move on to the rules and conditions of this scenario. Rules and conditions. Rachel can only use the objects and information given at the time to beat the Westside Ripper, so we're preferably looking for a solution that removes risks, ends the conflict sooner, and maybe even saves some lives too while we're at it. But to get a better understanding, let's go over the motives and abilities of the Westside Ripper. One very popular theory about the Night Ripper is that his public alter ego is actually the radio guy we hear, well, on the radio. Yeah, no shit. The radio guy rambles on about how the Ripper is a force for good and how the police should be giving this guy a badge. It's made very clear early on in the game, through the radio and newspaper clippings, that the Westside Ripper's main goal is to cleanse the city of its crime-ridden state. Also, can we just talk about how the word cleanse never sounds clean? Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. Anyways, he mainly wants to kill off junkies, prostitutes, and, gay people, for some reason. Sarah's boyfriend really should have watched his back. One thing that is established very clearly about our boy Donald Duck very early on in the game is that he's incredibly fast and has immense stamina. If he starts chasing the player, it's almost impossible to outrun him. He'll only give up chase if the player either gets far enough away from him, or if the player lets him chase them for long enough, till he just gives up, I guess. Another one of Daffy Duck's main abilities is proficient blade usage, with his main weapon of choosing being a switchblade, although it is made known through the newspaper clippings found in the game that he's also known to use broken bottles to kill his victims. Psyduck is also extremely tolerant to pain, since shooting him with a pistol won't even kill him, but instead just cause him to run away, and leave the player alone for a small period of time. And although Scrooge McDuck's main mission throughout the night is to kill Rachel, he will still veer off to kill other people, like he does shortly after Rachel tries to talk and warn a local prostitute about the Ripper. TLDR, the Westside Ripper's main abilities are as follows: incredible speed and stamina, blade proficiency, and finally, extreme pain tolerance. But now with that all out of the way, let's get on to these solutions. Solution 1. This first solution is the most risky out of the four lined up. At the start of the game, the Ripper would never physically go after Rachel unless he saw her. So the solution would be to just hide out in one of the buildings near the beginning of the game, and stay there till sunrise. The big gaping problem with this solution, however, is that the Ripper could easily very much still find you by chance, if he either sees you enter the building, or just decides to investigate the building on his own, looking for potential victims. Remember, the Ripper is very relentless in his search for you, as he goes all around town searching for you, and even goes as far as breaking into your own apartment in the end in order to try and kill you. However, this may be to your advantage, as his relentlessness to find you might get the better of him, and cause him to practically flip the town upside down in order to find you. This solution leaves a lot up to risk, and personally, I think it's definitely the worst out of the four. But fret not, as there's still 3 more solutions to go. Solution 2. A second solution for beating the Westside Ripper is to leave the crack den with the rope you acquired earlier, once it's made evident that he's broken in after you, then find his parked sedan and slash the tires so he can't drive after you. Then book it back to your apartment. This solution is good for 2 reasons. 1. The Ripper wouldn't know what you were doing till you were long gone. Plus, he wouldn't know what direction you went in, and he would have no way of catching up to you since, well, you can't drive a car or slash tires. 2. Since the crack den is before the rooftops, you would still have your keys to get inside your apartment, and you would need to find the 10 cents needed to call your roommate Rhonda. This solution presents way less risk than the last, but it's still not the best. So on to the next one. Solution 3. Our third option for beating the Night Ripper is to hide out in one of the clubs found across Greene County. Due to the DJ saying so on air, we know that there are plenty to choose from. The Night Ripper only ever, at most, is armed with a switchblade. He wouldn't be able to take on a crowd of people in one of the clubs. Another bonus is that if you decide to stop being a wuss, you could get one of the workers for help. They could call the police using their non-defective phones and get you the help with the Greene County bacon. And most clubs, if not all, have bouncers. So even if the Ripper wanted to sneakily and discreetly kill you, he'd still have to get his blade and mask through security, which is much easier said than done. So, the Ripper would mostly be cut off from you, and would be faced with either running off and killing other people in the streets, or risking getting caught by bringing a knife to a club, which would basically mean you're safe, and just wait it out till the morning. Maybe have a few drinks, party, meet a nice guy, you never know. Now, on to solution 4. Our last solution of the day is easily the best solution, the least risky solution by far, the most terribly obvious solution, the solution so obvious I'm surprised Rachel didn't even think of it. It's simple, accept Butch's ride home. At the very beginning of the game, Butch, Rachel's co-worker, offers to give us a ride home. Accepting his ride would mean that we get home safely in a fraction of the time presented in-game, and since Rachel's uncoordinated ass wouldn't be able to drop her purse off the rooftops, she wouldn't need to go on her pilgrimage to find 10 cents to call her roommate to open the door for her, since she'd still have her keys. This is simply a great solution as everybody wins. Rachel gets home safe, Rhonda doesn't get bothered, and Butch maybe even gets a BJ for his heroic act of generosity. In conclusion, I think we could have beaten the Westside Ripper from the Night Ripper. Let's take a quick recap who would have lived or died, assuming we made a few different decisions and went with solution 4. Okay, so, on the dead side we have the random prostitutes in the street. I think it's inevitable that more would have died that night, assuming Rachel accepted the lift, since Rachel escaping wouldn't have subdued the Ripper's thirst for blood. And on the alive side we have Rachel. I think Rachel comfortably lives in this scenario, assuming the Ripper doesn't try to jump their car, but I think this would not happen. Now we have Butch. Same goes here as it does for Rachel. And finally the Westside Ripper. Sadly the Ripper does survive this scenario to stalk another day. However, I think his days are numbered due to the greater pressure put on the police in the city to catch him, as shown earlier in the game. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. Special thanks to 10th Basilisk 88 for helping write the script, and Kara Unos for the game footage. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, as that'll help YouTube recommend my content to more people and help the channel grow. And remember, if there's a serial killer on the loose, don't walk home, just get a lift, mate.